Well, thanks, Nicole, and good morning. We'll shift gears to the weather. And thanks, Jason, for a really interesting talk here this morning on spring. In terms of the weather, Mother Nature's not going to cooperate that much for those of you who do have spray operations for the next couple of days, but it does look better as we go out in time. And I think the overall take home here for our outlook is unsettled here for the next couple of days, and I'll talk about that. We've still got some showers to dodge and some pretty breezy conditions, especially during the day. But by the middle or latter part of next week, and then maybe beyond, we are looking at a return to the pattern that we've been in for much of the spring, and that's certainly pushing us towards the warmer than normal. We did have yesterday, though. I want to start with yesterday in particular, a cold front going through the state, and that brought some pretty strong thunderstorms mainly to southeastern portions of lower Michigan. And I just wanted to point out that there actually were two tornadoes reported in Michigan yesterday, one up near Roscommon in the northern lower, but the other in near Livonia or in Livonia. And the blue dots there are high wind reports. So we did have, unfortunately, some severe weather, but as we, with a couple of exceptions here, it's been a very, very active severe weather pattern across the central U.S. Michigan's been mostly on the northeastern fringe of that, and yesterday was another example of that. But we did see a little bit, unfortunately, of severe weather. But looking at the wet past week here in review, starting on the far left with our mean temperatures, it was near normal across far southern parts of the state. Not much departure from the climatology, but as you go north, 2, 3, even 4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal, especially as you move into upper Michigan. Precipitation, both expressed in terms of the total in the middle image there, and then as a percent of normal, was generally below normal. And it's a little, I know many of you and some of you are still battling with wet conditions and trying to get things done here at this time of the year, a really, really busy time of the year. The issue, I think, with our precipitation mainly was more frequency rather than it was amount. The overall amounts, as you can see in the middle here, generally were in most cases less than half an inch, but in most of the state was less than an inch. And for most of the state, that was below what normally falls. But the problem was it came over many or several frequent episodes. And so there were a lot of wet days, and it wasn't much per event, but that did cause problems. Now, in some areas of the state, we had dry enough soils already, and it supported a continuation of progress. But there are some areas in the state that are still too wet, and it has been a challenge given this weather pattern. If we look here at soil temperatures and air temperatures at the past week, you can see that during the week on the right-hand side here, the dark red line here is our air temperature. The blinds below it are the 2-inch soil temperatures, and you can see that we had a gradual increase. Our soil temperatures, though, generally across the state range from the mid-50s on average at 2 inches in the far north to the mid-60s in many areas to the low 70s now across the far southwest. And that's where some of the drier conditions are as well. But so we have our soil temperatures have responded rapidly here during the last couple of weeks, but it was generally a week with a warming trend, both in terms of air and soil temperatures. Our degree day totals for the season, assuming a May 1 start, those totals are on the left-hand side here, and you can see that the range from less than 300 in the north to more than 500 across the far south. That's 1 month's worth, really, for basically the month of May, plus a couple of extra days in June. But for maybe the more important one here on the right-hand side, given our warmer than normal spring, we still have surpluses over almost all the state and the region, especially in the south, where we have now 100 units or more of surplus even at this point. And as we've said before, statistically, more often than not, if we get a surplus or a deficit, same thing applies when we have a cool spring, that stays with us for much of the season. And we move into the latter parts of the year. So right now, statistics would say we end the year with a surplus, and you would be right at least 70% of the time as we look at our climatology. So that surplus will probably be still, we're looking at that pattern here in the weeks to come. Soil moisture varies pretty dramatically across the state, but in general, wetter than normal. We're now want to make sure this is looking at the top, basically 16 inches. So this is topsoil moisture conditions expressed as a percentile. And the blues are wetter than normal, high percentiles, and then the browns and tans, et cetera, are the opposite, the low values. And what you can see a little bit here, some of the pattern across the state depicting these regional or sub-regional differences. It's wetter than normal in many northern parts of the state, especially portions of upper and western lower Michigan. It's still, and it's actually now near to a little bit drier than normal as we move south into the southern half or southeastern half of lower Michigan. So that's where things are basically right now. Looking ahead, our forecast, I mentioned the cold front that went through late yesterday and overnight. There's another one behind it, a secondary push of air. And we had the wind direction and speed on here. You would see our winds out of the west and northwest. It's bringing in air from Canada. Thanks, Jason, for that, for importing here for the next few days, but going to lead to essentially a significant cool down and several days here. We'll call it a good 2 to 3 day period of probably cooler than normal weather, especially during the daytime. With the green here, notice also there's cold air aloft with this colder air that's moving in, and so there's going to be an unstable atmosphere. So we will see there's actually one round of showers going through with the frontal passage right now, mainly across eastern portions of lower Michigan. That's going to move east and north over into Ontario and be out of Michigan here in the next couple of hours. But we will see, with again, that instability I mentioned, we will see showers form once again, especially across northern and eastern portions of the state here this afternoon. For most of us, it will be variably cloudy, but quite a few clouds there. The other thing is it's going to be breezy. A lot of with the differences in pressure here with this weather system, we will see a couple very, very windy days. So during the day, it's probably looking at 20, 30 mile per hour winds especially during the peak of the afternoon, mid to the late afternoon. So cloudy, breezy with showers, especially across the northern part of the state. By tomorrow morning here on Friday, more of the same. The front's moved a little bit further to the east, but we still have that lingering chance for showers. High temperatures today will still be from the upper 60s to low 70s across the state. So noticeably cooler in most areas than it was yesterday, but tomorrow will be cooler than that. And so tomorrow and probably Saturday as well, we won't get out of the 60s for our high temperatures. So that's a significant change. Now, on the other side of things, minimum temperatures looking at the mid or upper 40s in the far north to the low 50s in the south. So nothing really outlandish, but it's certainly going to be cooler than it has been. After Saturday and into Sunday, we do see a change in the upper air. The trough that's bringing this cool air down will be moving off into the east, and that'll be replaced ultimately by upper air ridging, like we have seen for much of the spring, and that should lead to a noticeable warming trend during the early to middle part of next week. So we'll be back into the 70s again for high temperatures most of the state by early in the week, and probably back up to near 80 by Wednesday or Thursday of next week. It also looks, by the way, in terms of precip, really with a daily chance for showers here over the next couple days, especially north and east part of the state. Not looking for a whole lot of precipitation at all. Here's the map for Saturday. I wanted to show that here real first. You can see lingering showers. There's a little bit of an upper air disturbance that will lead to probably a little bit better aerial coverage during the day on Saturday, but still not looking for any heavy rainfall. The Gulf of Mexico is cut off, and this is all moisture within the region. So where rain falls, we're generally looking for a tenth or two of an inch at best. Where it does fall, many areas will remain dry, but it'll be again sort of cloudy, unsettled with sprinkles or dry conditions. And so the totals here for the next week are generally expected to be less than half an inch across most of the state. So a drier than normal week ahead here, starting cooler than normal and then gradually warming up to once again to above normal by the middle of next week. Our potential evapotranspiration rates for the upcoming week, probably close to normal a little bit with that air temperature forecast. You can see generally about 1500ths to about 1800ths of an inch per day on average. Lower than that over the next couple days with the cool days, and then increasing as we go next week. So not as much. Then that's a change. We've seen above normal potential evapotranspiration rates here for much of the season, but the next few days at least will be a break in that. And then looking at the medium range, I mentioned a gradual return to where we have been. If you look at the jet stream forecast pattern here down in the lower left, you can see a ridge building out over the middle of the country. That is part of the ridge right now that's causing all of the high heat and heat wave conditions out in the western U.S. And it's basically likely going to shift towards the middle of the country by the latter part of next week. And so you can see a return here in the upper right. Above normal temperatures are expected with normal to or below normal precipitation totals. So warm and dry towards the end of next week and the following weekend. And then as a transition, looking at the 8 to 14 day, the ridge gets a little bit further to the east, the upper, and that warm air, and with it even a better chance for warmer than normal conditions here. This is the 13th through the 19th. You can also see maybe a little bit more of a storm track through the Midwest again, similar to what we've had for a lot of May and April and the beginning of June. And precip totals are forecast to increase back up to above normal levels. But I think the real message is here is and finally looking at the new or the modified long lead outlook for the month of June from NOAA. It does have June as is ending up warmer than normal. That's what we've been looking at in most of our forecast. No direction on precipitation totals, but I think the real message here is that for much of probably the latter part of June, we are looking at that warmer than normal conditions, as was the case earlier. And so summarizing here again, cooler, unsettled with nuisance, we'll call it, showers for those of you, again, are trying to get work done. We'll cross fingers. Many areas will remain mostly drier. There won't be enough precipitation to make a big difference, but there still will be the threat both today, tomorrow, and Saturday. And then as we move into next week, warmer and drier. And that's in agreement with most of the medium range forecast guidance you saw. And I'll wrap up there and move to theme-wise here, talk about our speaker next week, the 13th of June, for our virtual breakfast, Dr. Youngsuk Tudong from Department of Biosystems and Ag Engineering here at MSU. And our irrigation specialist is going to be with us to talk about irrigation. And so that is next week. And with that, I think I'll hand it back over to Phil.